Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back. First off, I'm gonna cut my dog's feet off. What the hell's wrong with you? Huh, buddy? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Just go lay down. Let me get this video done. Go lay down. Welcome back, and first things first, I want to thank everyone who came out to the rendezvous this year. We had a great time. Two great guest speakers, Jack Sanfelice and Thomas Glover. Great talks. We had a great turnout, over 80 people, even in these times with COVID and everything. So we're out in the amphitheater, great sound, great lighting, just an awesome weekend. So thank you to everybody who contributed all the way through. Too many names to list that kicked in every place to help to make the whole thing go and as successful as it was. So thank you to all of you who attended and helped out and everything. That being said and done, check out represent.com, because there were people at the rendezvous that had rendezvous shirts and legend shirts, which I'm not wearing one because mine are dirty because I wore them out at the rendezvous. But check those out. Make a comment, hit the notification bell, and please subscribe. We're nearing the 7,000 subscriber mark, so that would be great and awesome of you. All right, so thank you everybody so much. So coming up on Halloween, everybody's going to want a story kind of following, maybe a little Halloween themed. So I'm going to go back, and this is sometime in the early 2000s, and Randy Wright and I had met out by the Peralta Trailhead. And we got out, we had this day set up, we were going to get back up into the mountains. And we got out, and it started to mist and drizzle a little bit. And we were kind of like, wow, we finally got out here today, and now it's going to rain. So we decided, well, we had some rain gear jackets. So we figured threw those on, throw the hoods up. It's Arizona, it's going to clear out in an hour or so. So we went out, went up the Cardiac Trail, went to go back to Barks Canyon. By the time we got done with the 3-4 stages of Cardiac and started working our way down in and getting to Barks Draw, it was pouring. And it was literally just coming down on us. And the cloud cover was lowering into the mountains, fog was coming up, the cold was coming in. And we kind of had that mindset, we're just going to keep going. I don't remember what the objective that day was, but we decided we're going to just spend it hiking through the mountains. So every trail we're walking becomes basically a small little stream because it's just running water. So as you can imagine, even the gear we're wearing, because of the moisture, it would go to a bit of a downpour, to a drizzle. What happens is it's just saturating the moisture into everything, including the cameras we had. And literally, they started having kind of a odd fogging effect in them. Everything we had, it's just you're soaked. You could feel it inside your clothes. But as well, we're walking down these trails, and it's just running water. We're just walking through running water everywhere we go. Got up, turned the corner. When we got to Bluff Springs, where you come up into the Needle Canyon, we looked to the left, looked to the right. Of course, Weaver's Needle was no longer visible. The cloud cover had actually taken out the top of Bluff Springs Mountain, and then everything in the canyons had some low rolling fog. And we kind of looked at each other and thought, well, we'll just loop back this way and back around by Miner's Needle and kind of work our way out, consider it a hike. I think we kind of decided at that point it was more of a photography session, because it was just beautiful back in the mountains. We'd never seen the cloud cover that low. One thing we did discuss here and there was we could understand how people could get turned around and lost in a storm in the mountains, because a lot of the areas you would look to work through, you just couldn't see them. If you weren't within 100, 150 yards, you didn't see the mountain. So literally everything was covered up. We knew where we were as we worked our way through, but it was just simply, everything was blocked out till you got closer and closer in. So we're hitting our landmarks. We're cutting around the south side of Bluff Springs, heading over towards the Bluff Springs camp in Crystal Spring. And everything coming out of Needle Canyon was probably running about 2.5 feet of water. So it's starting to build up more and more. So it's getting up probably halfway between the ground and our knees. So we're having to slosh through it all. Kind of worked our way through, and at that point we're also realizing it's 40, 50 degrees out. So we're getting colder and colder, and it's clammy and all this. And like I said, that mist was worse than the actual rain. The rain, you could deal with. The mist was just so thick. It was just like someone running a mister or a humidifier on you all the time in your face and in your clothes. It was creeping in. So we got around to Bluff Springs, and at that point I knew there was a spot we could take some shelter, because that was another problem. We were like, where can we kind of hole up for a little bit, maybe kind of dry out? So we got up around Bluff Springs, and just a little bit to the northeast of Bluff Springs, there's a little alcove up there. And I told Randy, I said, let's work around away from the spring, the pipe from the spring, and let's get up there. I know, it's a good, cool little spot. Let's go up there and hang out. And the storm's rolling in, and the weather's getting just worse and worse. So we finally got in there. It got us up off the ground, a little bit of a climb up to get up to there, but it's a bit of a ledge, and it's a nice alcove. You couldn't call it a cave. It's not near deep enough, but it's a nice alcove, and it gives you a lot of protection. So we're finally out of the rain, and along the way there, anything we could find back, brushy or any sticks or anything kind of off to the side, we were grabbing. Of course, shoving into our jackets and stuff and trying to keep it from getting wet. Got up there, and there's a couple grinding holes, or kind of in those little spots. So we got up in there, climbed in there. Of course, the other problem was everything we had was saturated. So we kind of tried to build a tinder bundle and everything, but the matches were completely soaked. Even the weatherproof matches were so saturated we couldn't get. It would just go, and just a little smoke, and that's all we get. My lighter was absolutely saturated. My cigarettes were actually in decent shape, but they were damp. When I did get one lit later, it was so slow burning, because it was literally, they were just saturated with the moisture in the air. So finally I broke out my flint, and I had my knife, and I sat down, and that fire, you don't know what fire means until you're in a day like that and so soaking wet and stuff. And I got that stuff to ignite, and it wasn't a very big fire, but as soon as it lit, it was like, you can see Randy just smiled, because you could feel the heat, and it dried the air by us, and it was such a difference. So we kind of held ourselves up into this alcove. And that alcove is famous for another reason, and I knew this at the time, and I hadn't said anything to Randy, but it was a place I wanted to go. I wanted to investigate and research. And Randy is particular of the superstitious side of things, and I knew he wouldn't be as kind of enthusiastic to go there as I was. Now, the story, I thought, came from Ripples of Lost Echoes. However, I perused the book and realized the story's not there. And I was trying to figure out where I got the story from, and I was able to actually Google some things that I'd written about it, that it must have been a newspaper article, a magazine article that either was written by Bob Ward or in his authored in a different name he used called Val Paris. So, but that's where I must have got the information from. And the story's called The She Thing. Now, the story goes, Bob Ward and another gentleman were up in the Superstitions, and they were waylaid. The same thing happened to me and Randy. It was raining, except they had thunder, lightning. It was a terrible storm. So they get up in there, and they're trying to find a place, and they find this alcove up by Bluff Springs. And they get in there, and they kind of situate. And at that time, when they were hiking in there, they had candles. So everything's so saturated and everything, they're just kind of holed up in there. And they had a candle lit, give them a little bit of warmth, which a candle's a wonderful thing, if nothing else, if you can keep it lit. Ward said the lightning, the thunder's going on. The wind doesn't cut you in that spot. It is kind of nice because it doesn't really intrude on you, we found. But he said the candle kept going out like someone was snuffing it. And he said it was very odd. It wasn't wavering, flickering. It was just like it would get snuffed. And he said it was getting dusk, and the sun's going down, and they would relight the candle, and he figured it maybe had to do with the moisture. And they keep relighting their candles, and they keep snuffing out. Thunder's going, lightning flashes. They realize they got to kind of hang up in this place for the night. The storm's just getting worse and worse. There's no even sense trying to work their way out of the mountains. So they're sitting there, and the storm's going on around them, and the next thing they know is this black figure and a woman of some sort rises from the brush below and up through the brush in front of them. And they only see it because as it rises, the lightning flashes, and they see this thing happening in the flashes of lightning happening. And Ward said it just got freezing cold. The candles went out, and this thing's coming up, and they're seeing it flashing in the lightning before them. I'm not sure he called it the she thing. It was just a black woman-shaped something, maybe a banshee, who knows. But he said it rose up, and I guess they decided to shoot at it, so they started firing their guns, trying to figure out what this thing is that showed up in front of them. So they come out, and they're firing their guns, and then whatever it is disappears, and the storm's going. At this point, I guess they decided to gather wood and get a real fire going, so somehow they managed to pull some things together and keep a fire burning through the night. The story stuck with me as well. Bob Ward could tell some tales. I also realized he kind of seemed like, most of the time he writes, he doesn't seem very much like he's kind of terrified, afraid of something. He kind of has a cowboy up attitude. And in this story, you can sense, and he even says as much, as he never wanted to see that thing again. He wanted nothing to do with it, does not know what they saw, what was going on, but literally, they were up in that alcove, they had that fire going, couldn't wait for daylight to break and the storms to cease so they could get out of there, because they wanted nothing else to do with it, but they had no place to go. And I took that in and I wrote about it and asked some people about it, because I knew a number of people had known him and so forth. And no one really seemed to give me too much more of the story. Now, a few of them might cough up something now. Well, tonight I went to look, and I decided, it's in the book. It's not in the book. It's in an article. But I knew one of the places I found it was that when the book came out, there was a map. And on the map that was included with the book, you open it up, fold it out, and it had this list of things from the book and other things that he'd written about, and it had, where they were located exactly in the mountains. So I remembered that, but at the time when I heard the story, I couldn't find the map from the book. It had obviously come apart from the book, and I didn't know where anything was, so I asked around. And I've spoken recently of our passing of Joe Roboto. Joe Roboto told me, messaged me, or called me on the phone, said, I have a copy. I'll make one for you so you can have a copy of the map. And I thanked him very much. And I kind of forgot about it. And then one day this big, large tube comes. Now the map that I remembered was a small map. You can buy them at the Superstition Mountain Museum still. They're about the size of the book. They fold out into like 6 little things, and they're about this big. What I got from Joe was this map. Much bigger than I remembered it, and it actually has all number of things from the book and his newspaper articles listed in it. Tonight, one of the odd things with this map was I went out and I knew where it was. It's in tubes. I have a number of map tubes, mailing tubes that I use, and I put the maps in and I label them. So I went out, went to the tubes, and went to go through the tubes, and this is different than the topographical maps that are in the tubes that I have. And I went through them all, and it wasn't there. So then I came back in the house, and I thought maybe I had it out, and I put it on the shelf in with the books in that section, because for a long time it sat in there. Did not find it, went back out again. I pulled each individual tube out, pulled each thing out, looked at it, put it back in. Went through them all, I was pretty sure, and it's quite a few. Came back in, thought, I just don't get it, because that was one of those things I wouldn't have done anything with. Even though I have nicer copies now, I actually enjoy this one because of the size of it. And I know we're kind of getting apart from the story a bit, but anyhow, for the filming of this, figured we would want to show the map, and as well, put up a visual of that specific spot where it's at. Well, I went back in the garage the third time, and I walk up, the first tube I pull right from the top where I'd already been through everything. I pull it out, figure I'm going to go through each one of these. I pull it, pop, and it was the map. So I do not know why the map didn't seem to be there when I checked the first 2 times, but the 3rd time I did find the map tonight. So anyhow, I knew this spot, and Randy and I are there, and I turned to Randy and I started to talk and said, "This is, you know what? It's getting later in the day, and the storm's here, and it might clear out later. Why don't we hang?" So we hung for a while, and after a bit, storm started to recede, and that ruined my idea, because my idea was we need to be here in a stormy night and sit up here with some flickering light and see what happens, because I'm completely all for this. So I'm all into this. Storm's lifting, the clouds start to clear a bit. I just decide, you know what, that's not the effect I want. We'll come out here on another stormy night and directly out and do this. So we pick everything up and we take off, and there's some great photography I took as we went out, because we ended up in the misty rain again. And then the cloud cover and breaking on the mountains as we left. The clouds were slowly rolling up. I wish we had, it would have been beautiful time lapse at that given time. So we got out of the mountains. Good to note and mention is that when we got out, we got to the truck and the car, and we kind of started to pull our jackets and all the wet clothes off, because we don't want to get in our vehicles and drive home, because we were just soaking wet. Everything, our packs all the way through to the center were just soaked. Even if we had stuff, if you opened anything, it was like my cigarettes. It was just, you could feel it was damp. It was like permeating. So we got there. Well, the moment we started pulling everything off, just steam came off our bodies. It was like clouds of smoke coming off of us. And we were just cracking up, because we kept thinking we're going to be sick as dogs. But our body heat was so intense under there from all the hiking and stuff. I guess we were literally burning everything off. So we got it, and neither one of us did even catch the slightest cold from spending an entire day in the downpour like that, which you would have thought soaked the boat we would. So we got done. So the next trip we make out, I turned to Randy and I said, "Hey, let's go back up, and I want to go and I want to bring a camera and some stuff." And I had a small mini DV camera that actually has night vision. And I thought, well, I want to take this up. And I was like, "Randy, I'm going to take this gear up. Let's go up. I want to set up in this alcove, and I want to run that mini DV, because it looks like it might storm a little tonight, and there might be a little storm. I want to run this thing from this alcove. So we're going to stay out a little later, and I want to kind of catch that area and see what we feel and kind of what it looks like at night and all this." And Randy was not as enthusiastic. And he's had no problem with admitting that there was no way he was going to accompany me to that spot and even attempt this. So I've made a couple other trips out there, not knowing this happened, but the part I've always kind of looked at is when you're sitting there, it is anything that would come up. There is nothing in the foreground, the background, anywhere around you that would make you mistake. It is the perfect setup for if something was going to come up, you would see it very singly and clearly. He listed it as the she thing, because obviously he could tell it was female, a witch, a ghost, a banshee. But Bob Ward in the Superstition Mountains, and I don't remember the year on that, but look up the article, I'm sure, and I'll find the article and kind of reference to it. Too bad that kind of stuff isn't online, because I think those stories are far better. But Bob Ward and the she thing from the Superstition Mountains. So for Halloween, get up by Bluff Springs, go off to the right a little, you'll see that alcove with the grinding holes. Set up your camera, light your candles. Stormy night, see what happens, all right? So everybody have a happy Halloween. Thank you for joining us here at Chasing Legends. Thank you to all of you who've picked up t-shirts and stuff and supported us, subscribed. And we will see you again next time on Chasing Legends.